Hello and welcome to Useless Movie Reviews. Today I'm taking a sideways glance at an iconic movie of the mid-60s titled Fantastic Voyage. Fantastic Voyage is a docudrama about how lava lamps were made in the 60s and 70s. Many people believe they were created just using wax in oil heated by a bulb, but the truth is much more, well, fantastic. We start out with our hero being driven to a secret location where our expectations are immediately subverted by his car being lowered into the ground using a bizarre perspective. I personally hate the phrase subverting expectations, but my psychiatrist told me I should get used to it if I want to annoy as many people as possible, along with a liberal sprinkling of the buzzwords pivot, diverse, manspread and coffee pot. And so here we are. But I'm digressing. Once at the bottom of the lift shaft, our adventurer is greeted by a futuristic electric cart, and it's not long after this that I'm wondering why there aren't a cacophony of fat bastards shoehorning themselves through doorways or a string of broken down vehicles due to weight limits being exceeded because everyone just sits at a desk or rides on machines here to get around. It's a good thing they have the correct papers, because if they just broke through that boom gate, everyone would be too lazy to get off their fat asses to chase them down. At last, our weary traveller finds himself being cruelly worn down by the handshake and excruciating 10 paces he has to walk to have a breathy exchange explaining he's going to have to go in again to get those floaty bubbles for the next generation of lava lamps. And so it's not long before he's introduced to the rest of his crew in white coats for the mission. A doctor, a sexy bitch, and a saboteur. Next, the team is subjected to a drawing lesson while the generals lay down some suppressing fire and smoke. It's at this point the sexy bitch gets up from his manspreading and points out where the red happens, and then switches it up with some blue. While he continues to witter on about colour diversity, the rest of the crew decide to pivot and ignore him. As our adventurers blatantly rip off the heroes from Endgame, we are introduced to their totally original vehicle called the X-Jet, and they enter to get used to their new surroundings. Along with the crew, we are witness to the future of entertainment as envisioned in the 60s. Here we see the latest widescreen TV along with a futuristic game console and joystick, long before a totally different setup was used for entertainment today. Meanwhile, the Doctor suggests the saboteur may be getting confused with how lap belts work, but she politely humours him when he barks that he knows how laps work for God's sake. And so, after everyone has had a chance to use the poop deck, it looks like everyone has now learnt the finer points of lap belt etiquette from Captain Confused over there. And before they know it, the miniaturization has begun. Once Phase 1 is complete, the catchily named precision handling device is brought in, and before the Doctor has a chance to fall into the dreamy blue eyes of the closest operator, they're put into a giant syringe and everything is shrunk down again. Just as the doctors are about to make the patient into Pinhead out of boredom, the adventurers enter and are injected into the prone patient. Meanwhile, at the base, Peter is busy indicating to the generals where the bad man touched him. While back at the ship, our heroes begin gathering the bubbles that make lava lamps so special. Then, just as our adventurers are wondering why everything has gone blue, we switch to an anatomy class where John thinks he's got the answer, but is sent to the principal's office when he claims it's because of the tint of the screen watching him. Meanwhile, in that very principal's office, the generals drink coffee and point at things. Next, it's a swift drive back to the operations centre, where they abuse their coffee pot once again, while not walking more than 10 paces. While they continue to talk, the general fills his coffee cup again, and is told he's pouring in too much salt. He just shrugs and says, "Fuck it, it all comes out the same anyway." Back in the ship, The captain is wishing he had some coffee, but if he only knew the coffee salt rage that caused the dent in the coffee pot back at base, well, let's just say, luckily bad aim has spared any further carnage this time. Back at the ship, engines have been clogged with debris, so a trip outside is staged to add some tension. A tension relieved by more coffee for the general. Suddenly though, even more tension arrives in the form of an attack on the female doctor from the patient's immune system, and she is forced to relive her casting couch incident all over again. The general, meanwhile, uses more coffee to get the taste out of his mouth from his own casting couch experience. And soon enough, our adventurers have collected enough bubbles and planned the trip home, but then they accidentally wreck the ship. They eventually manage to escape through tear ducts and are made back to normal size again. And so, having lost their cargo, their ship, and a shipmate, everyone abandons their posts to wander aimlessly around them for no apparent reason, not giving a shit about the poor patient going into cardiac arrest in the next room. Well, at least they got off their fat asses. The end. Hey, thanks for watching this pile of garbage. Please consider subscribing and clicking stuff all over the place in celebration of a job well done.